the Wrestlebread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is another episode of the Wrestlebread Podcast. I am Jaydee, and today we're going to talk about my top Mania moments of all time. Some of them you'll agree with, some of them you probably won't agree with. But I want to hear your opinion on it. You let me know what's your top 5 Mania moments. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to start off with some honorable mentions. Some that didn't make the top 5, but I wanted to mention anyway. So the first one is when Shawn Michaels wins the title at Wrestlemania 12. This was an Iron Man match between him and Bret Hart, which it's the first televised Iron Man match in WWE or WWF at the time, but it wasn't the first one ever done. So Bret Hart did go through 2 Iron Man matches at house shows, actually. One was against Ric Flair, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't remember who the second one is with, but I do know that he did do 2 Iron Man matches before the one at WrestleMania 12. So the storyline of it was Shawn Michaels' boyhood dream of becoming champion, him struggling and striving to get to that point. He had his trainer, Jose Lothario, with him. Shawn Michaels had a very special entrance where he ziplined from the top of the arena down to the crowd, which unfortunately you won't see again. But it was if you expected a very high-flying and flashy match, that was not what you got with this. Of course, it's them wrestling for 60 minutes straight, so for the first time on TV. So there was a lot of wrestling holds. There was a lot of technical movement, which was different than what you saw with Shawn Michaels, of course. Of course, the rule of the Iron Man match was whoever had the most falls is the winner. And the match went the full 60 minutes and there was no winner. Neither Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart scored a fall, submission, or a count out. So they decided to go to sudden death. Bret and Shawn Michaels fought some more. Shawn Michaels caught Bret with the sweet chin music, pinned him 1, 2, 3. And it was a special moment because it started the career of Shawn Michaels, in my opinion. From then on, of course, he only went up from there. So the boyhood dream coming true, as Vince McMahon said, was one of my honorable mentions. So the second honorable mention is the Sorry I Love You from WrestleMania 24. It was Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair. This was a career-ending match with Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels didn't want to be the person to end Ric Flair's career. Of course, Ric Flair kind of forced his hand to, get into the ring with him. And, Shawn Michaels took it to him. Ric Flair took it to him too. And it came a moment when Shawn Michaels wanted to do the sweet chin music and he just couldn't do it. And Shawn Michaels was telling Ric Flair, at one point to just stay down. But Ric Flair, in the middle of the ring, telling Shawn Michaels to give him the sweet chin music, and Shawn Michaels was in the corner, readying up, and he looks at him and he says, "Sorry, I love you," and gave him the sweet chin music, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and everyone cried because it was the end of an era with Ric Flair. Of course, he stayed around with WWE, but to not see him wrestle again in WWE, of course, he went off to a different promotions and wrestled too. I actually met him in person. I went to a House of Hardcore show, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And he walks past by. I'm sitting down in the seat and he walks right past by. And I wooed and he wooed. And my life is complete as a wrestling fan. I didn't take a picture with him because it was a long line, of course. But I did take a picture of him. So, him having his career ended at WrestleMania 24 by Shawn Michaels was another honorable mention of mine. The third honorable mention was the greatest cash-in. So, this was a match that nobody really, kind of didn't really want it, and the result that nobody expected. So, this was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and this was the birth of Suplex City. So, this was back when Roman Reigns had blue contacts. So, if you didn't notice he had blue contacts, you could look it back. He had blue contacts. He kicked out of the F5 a couple of times. Everyone expected for him to win because that was the way he was built up. Of course, he got booed plenty of times. It was at the point that was kind of 50-50 still. I mean, he still had some cheers, but the consensus was that he got booed. And then, of course, we had, the moment where Brock Lesnar suplexed him numerous times and then said, "Suplex City, bitch." So that was the birth of Suplex City. It came to a point where Roman Reigns was getting a lot of offense. You kind of felt it in your stomach that he's going to pull it off. He's going to somehow beat Brock Lesnar. And at the time, I would have been so pissed off if Roman Reigns had won that, if beat Brock Lesnar, because at the time, my theory was, if Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar, then technically he beat The Undertaker. Because Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker, and no one can beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania except for Brock Lesnar. So if you had Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar, then technically you're saying that Roman Reigns can beat The Undertaker. I know it happens a couple of years later. That also pissed me off too. But at the time, my thinking was, Roman Reigns should not win this because you're saying that Roman Reigns can beat The Undertaker and is better than The Undertaker. And as a fan of Undertaker, I could not accept that fact. So, there was a point where Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar was laying down on the mat. Seth Rollins' music hits. Everyone goes, "What is this?" Seth Rollins runs down, cashes his briefcase, turns the match into a triple threat match. He, of course, did the curve stomp to Roman Reigns, covered him, 1, 2, 3, we got a new champion. The craziest thing, there are probably some people who figured that was going to happen because Seth Rollins did face Randy Orton earlier in that pay-per-view, and the match was pretty early. So people probably had the idea. I didn't have the idea because all fingers was pointing at Roman Reigns to win at WrestleMania. So I have this as an honorable mention of the best Mania moments. So now, let's get to the top 5. So, my top 5 Mania moment is Icon versus Icon. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. So, this was a match. This is one of those dream matches that you always ask, and you always wonder. Like, can such and such beat such and such? So, the question was, can The Rock beat Hulk Hogan? Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So this was back when WCW was purchased by WWE, and NWO was brought over. Hulk Hogan claimed he was the number 1 wrestler, which, The Rock was there at the time, so of course they clashed. And it all led to the WrestleMania match. So the moment is, of course, you've probably seen it thousands of times, but it is the moment before the match where they are standing there face to face. The crowd is going crazy. You get goosebumps on your arms because this is something that you only witness once in a lifetime. When you are able to witness 2 icons in the match together and you're sitting there can't wait to see this. And you're sitting there wondering who's going to come out on top. Will it be The Rock? Will it be Hulk Hogan? I mean, for weeks, I know people went back and forth with this of The Rock will win and why, and Hogan will win and why. Bit of a confession, I was not the biggest Hulk Hogan fan. I thought he was a bit overrated with the whole eat your vitamins and say your prayers. I did like Hollywood Hulk Hogan because I felt as though, like, not everyone is, like, angels and, 100% like, you know what I mean? The John Cena effect. Not everyone's 100% on the good side, okay? Everyone has a dark side, okay? So I liked Hollywood Hulk Hogan. But the moment when they were standing face to face to each other, the match didn't even start. The bell has not rung yet. And The Rock and Hulk Hogan are standing there, staring at each other, and they slowly turn their heads from left to right because half the crowd is cheering for The Rock, half the crowd is cheering for Hogan. At a certain point, though, everyone was cheering for Hulk Hogan because you saw the transition, really, of Hulk Hogan going from Hollywood Hulk Hogan to the red and yellow Hulk Hogan. But just that little moment there where they stood there and looked left to right to the fans was electrifying. And of course, The Rock won the match. It was the passing of the torch from Hulk Hogan to The Rock. But it was very nostalgic to watch Hulk Hogan fight. So that is number 5. The number 4 moment of all time is the body slam for WrestleMania 3. Now, you may think that this is either too high or too low, but the reason why I have this at number 4 is because the moment that Andre the Giant was slammed was not the first time that Andre the Giant was slammed, and it wasn't the first time that Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. But the moment is iconic because of what it symbolized in the storyline. So this was the great rivalry between friends. Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan were friends. Andre the Giant, of course, this turned his back on Hulk Hogan, had Bobby the Brain Heenan as his manager, and the whole thing was Hulk Hogan felt as though that, Bobby the Brain Heenan was in his ear, and his best friend had turned his back to them. So, Andre the Giant was very dominant, of course, back then. And the body slam was iconic because, first of all, how crazy the crowd went when it happened. Second, it was Hulk Hogan won the match, but the body slam kind of put a stamp on the great rivalry that they had together. And storyline of, the best friend that was done wrong and had adversity and came back to win it and body slammed the Giant. I take that as my top 4 Mania moment. So, all right. So my number 3 Mania moment of all time is the double turn at WrestleMania 13, the submission match. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart. Now, this was a pivotal moment in WWE because this was a very rare time where a face came into the match and walked out as the heel, and that the heel came into the match and walked out as a face. Ken Shamrock was the guest referee. The iconic moment was Stone Cold Steve Austin in the sharpshooter, blood gushing down his face, and refused to give up and passed out from losing a lot of blood. He got busted open on the guardrail in the middle of the match. Bret Hart kind of had heel tendencies before the match anyway. The whole story was when Bret Hart came back to WWE, a lot of the fans have already became fans of Steve Austin. Steve Austin was starting to really get into the Austin 316. I wasn't that big of a Bret Hart fan, really. I respected Bret Hart. His match against Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10 was one of my favorite WrestleMania matches. But I respected the technical wrestler, Bret Hart. I didn't really care for his personality. I felt as though he was a bit bland. With Stone Cold, though, I thought Stone Cold was funny. They had a Slammy Awards ceremony before WrestleMania 13. You can look it up on YouTube, because the faces that Stone Cold made, it wasn't even a face he made. It was a Stone Cold glare that he would give, and straight no emotions, like burned a hole into your soul type of stare. He was really funny at the Slammies to me. He cut a promo on The Rock. He cut a promo on Bret Hart. He was pretty funny to me. So with this match, he was supposed to be the heel. You're supposed to boo him. But when you see him in the sharpshooter, in pain, blood's gushing down, and he refused to give up, you have to respect that. And Bret Hart came across as a little whiny brat anyway, so it's on him that the heel got cheered afterwards. But thus, after that double turn, started the Austin 316 era. Austin 316 era started at the King of the Ring when he mentioned it, but the popularity of it definitely grew from that double turn. So, my number 2 moment of all time is Daniel Bryan winning the title at WrestleMania 30. This is one of my favorite storylines, because I love these type of storylines because it felt very organic. It was organic. Daniel Bryan was a fan favorite, and Daniel Bryan doesn't have the look of what WWE brands as a champion. You know, people like John Cena, Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, they had the look of a WWE champion, but not Daniel Bryan. And this storyline started all the way from SummerSlam, even before that actually, but it definitely grew bigger after SummerSlam when Daniel Bryan temporarily won the title, but Randy Orton cashed in his briefcase and took the title from Daniel Bryan. He had his feud with the Authority, who called him a B+ player. Oh, how that line have come full circle this WrestleMania. Batista was originally planned to be in the main event with Randy Orton. Batista came back at the Royal Rumble, eventually won it, and was booed because the fans wanted to see Daniel Bryan. It's very similar to Becky Lynch, very similar to Kofi Kingston. The fans wanted to see a certain individual. The person wasn't named for Royal Rumble or to main event WrestleMania, but by the popularity of the fans and how popular the Yes Movement became, Daniel Bryan was eventually in the main event at WrestleMania 30. So this moment I actually witnessed live. Another confession, please do not hit the unsubscribe button, but I wasn't the biggest Daniel Bryan fan either. I respected the guy. I felt as though he was pretty good. I did like the Yes Movement, but I wasn't like head over heels for it. But when he won that title, the story that you got sucked in when he went against Triple H, and then when he went against Randy Orton and Batista in the triple threat, at the end of the night, I was chanting yes. I was a complete Daniel Bryan fan after watching him wrestle live. It was a great storyline. It felt like not only that Daniel Bryan won, but we all won. The fans won. Truthfully, as Daniel Bryan has said, the original plan was for him to go against Sheamus. So the fact that the fans really put their opinions out there of who they wanted to wrestle for the title instead of Batista, it really changed the course of WrestleMania for that year. And Daniel Bryan winning the title, it was magical. The confetti was the confetti was coming down. Everyone was chanting yes. I believe his sister and niece came into the ring. It was a magical moment. Now comes the number one Mania moment of all time. And you probably can guess what it is. If any indication of what I have talked about between my first episode and this episode, you probably can guess what the number one moment is. And that is the streak is over. This moment I witnessed live. First of all, this was my first WrestleMania. And I was hyped to go to WrestleMania because I got to see The Undertaker at WrestleMania. This was the only match that I was so hyped for. He had the special entrance. I actually was on the floor for WrestleMania. Yes, I got floor seats for my birthday. We were on the floor not too far from the entrance. Let me see. So we were on, if you're facing the ring, we were on the left side of the entrance. So I was able to walk over to the entrance and get close enough to film The Undertaker walking down the ramp. It was amazing. It was magical. I was so happy the match happened. And I was very optimistic that The Undertaker was going to win until the match started, and definitely by halfway through the match, I felt something wrong. The Undertaker didn't look right. Of course, it came out that he got a concussion during the match. Seeing it with my own two eyes, it was pretty bad. He didn't look right. You can tell that he was injured, that something was off about him. Brock Lesnar, first of all, if you never seen Brock Lesnar in person, don't, because that man is freakishly athletic. Okay, when he came out, I was like, damn, he is big. Like, he is bigger in person. Normally you're bigger on TV because of the camera. No, he is bigger in person. And when I saw him, I was like, oh man, he's really going to give it to The Undertaker. Like, Brock Lesnar is not somebody that you want to be in the alleyway with, okay? Brock Lesnar is the type of person, when he asks you for your lunch money, you give him your retirement fund, okay? That's how Brock Lesnar looks in person. So witnessing The Undertaker at WrestleMania for the first time in my life, it was so magical. And of course, the WrestleMania that I went to go see him was the WrestleMania that he lost. What doesn't make it any better is that my fiance is a Brock Lesnar fan. So when The Undertaker lost, first of all, you couldn't comprehend that he actually lost at first, because you saw the referee count to 3 and you're like, whoa. Did he just count to 3? The Undertaker kick out? Like, did his shoulder go up a little bit? Like, you had to really think about it. And then I don't even remember them announcing that he lost. There was a bit of a pause. There was a hush. The crowd was in shock. And then the assholes of WWE puts the graphic up immediately that said 21-1. And that's when people went off. I started cursing because I'm like, no, we are not doing this. I did not come all the way down to New Orleans by train, matter of fact, because I'm afraid of flying, to witness The Undertaker lose in person. I was sitting there like, not really, I'm not going to say that I could have stayed home, but I'm like, I could have picked a better WrestleMania to go to witness The Undertaker live. My fiance was jumping around. Him and one other person near us was high-fiving because he's happy that his guy won. I'm losing it because I'm like, what is this? And it felt like I was in a different dimension. I was in a different universe because The Undertaker just lost at WrestleMania. And then you feel stupid because Paul Heyman kept cutting promos about this the whole time. So he kept saying, this is not a prediction, it's a spoiler. And you know, thinking about it on the way home, I'm like, dang, he really did tell us that it was a spoiler. Like, he really did tell us that Brock Lesnar is going to win. But either way, I was still pissed off. So, as you can tell from my frustration and the horrific moment that I went through, why this is the number one moment. This was the end of an era. The Undertaker had 21 wins in a row at WrestleMania. WrestleMania became the who is Undertaker going to face and beat. And now, well, at that time in WrestleMania 30, he was beatable. And it made the Undertaker a lot more human, if that makes sense. First of all, when I was younger, you could not tell me that the Undertaker was a human being. I swore he was a dead person that came back to life. Especially when the Undertaker disappeared in 1994. Their little kid, they cut little vignettes when the Undertaker disappeared of people who said they saw the Undertaker. And there was one vignette where this little kid said, I just saw you know who I just saw? I just saw the Undertaker, and he was in a park with his mom. So of course, I got scared. I was like, oh snap, the Undertaker is watching kids. He's like Santa Claus. You know, he knows when you're naughty or nice. He watches you when you're sleeping. I could have sworn he was underneath my bed. I could have sworn he was in my closet. I didn't sleep with the lights off that whole time. As much as I'm a fan of The Undertaker, I was scared of The Undertaker too. I mean, come on. I was like 10 years old at the time. And you're telling me that this guy who cannot be killed disappeared, and suddenly kids saw him, people saw him, he's walking into stores. And I'm sitting here like, okay, so he's not confined to the arena. He's not confined to just wrestling. Like, he's out there in the world walking around. And in my head, what's stopping The Undertaker from coming all the way to Philadelphia and walking into a store with where I'm at, you know? What's stopping The Undertaker from climbing and hiding underneath my bed and trying to take my soul? True story. This is actually what I thought. But back to the topic. This was the number one moment of all time because this was a big moment. You know, the streak was over. And as we saw a couple years after that, the Undertaker was beaten again by Roman Reigns. If you want to see me when I'm upset and see my blood boil, it was that WrestleMania where Roman Reigns won. That's my top 5 Mania moments. Hopefully we'll get more Mania moments with this WrestleMania. We'll see what happened with Kofi Kingston. If Kofi Mania is going to run wild, then I hope he wins the title. I really do. We're going to see what's going to happen with Becky Lynch. If she's going to win the title. This is a winner takes all match, so we may see her at both titles, just like Daniel Bryan. We'll see what also happens with NXT TakeOver, which I can't wait to see. We'll see what happens with the Battle Royales, which match of the night, guys, with both of them. Matches of the night, as I should say. But let me know what your top Mania moments are. Do you agree with me with my top 5? Do you think I should take things out? Maybe some things are marked too high. Maybe some things are marked too low. Maybe there are Mania moments I didn't even mention that you feel as though should be in the top 5. So let me know. You find me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks. Make sure you follow the podcast at Wrestlebread. And let me know what you think. Make sure you leave a review too if you like these episodes so far. Let me know things you want me to talk about. You know, I told you I'm a newbie to the indies. If you want me to take a look at a match and get my opinion on it, I'm down. Just let me know what match. So until next time, guys, next episode I'll be giving my predictions for WrestleMania and NXT TakeOver and see if you agree with me with what I think. Peace out, guys.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at Wrestlebread.com.